All right, hello. This video is on infinite loops. Before we get into that, I just want to do a review question, which we've kind of come up and talked about some already in class, but this is one where they had to enter a valid shipping cost between $0 and $500, including 0 and 500. And so we want to keep looping until they enter like the right cost, right? So basically, you can kind of see we've got a scanner variable. We ask them the first time to enter the shipping cost. We scan that, and then we want to say while whatever, please try again, and then keep scanning, right? Cost, keep scanning again and again and again, overriding the cost with a new value, right? So um, your job is to figure out what would be the right condition that goes here, right? When do we want to keep looping? And then once that's done, we'll say thank you and insult them, of course. So pause the video, see if you can figure out what would be the right condition for this. All right, so the answer here is basically while they've entered something incorrect, we want to say, please try again and keep overriding the cost with the new value. So I'm definitely going to be checking that cost variable. And so the idea would be I want to do that cost variable, right? If while that is below 0, or, and it helps me really to talk this out, to be honest, like sometimes they say like, if you're not sure how to do something, talk to like a rubber ducky. It's a real thing actually. And so like this, when I read it, it kind of helps me. So while cost is less than 100 or cost is greater than 500, basically that means they've entered something incorrect, right? Although either one of those are true, I want to say keep, you know, please try again and keep overriding cost until cost becomes a value that no longer fits this while. So this will say, again, while it's less than 0 or greater than 500, keep overriding it. And then once that's finally done, this while loop will end, go down to the closing curly brace, and then I'll run the line right after that. Right, and so coming up with these conditions oftentimes is the real challenge on these questions. All right, anyways, this is on infinite loops today. Okay, and so what an infinite loop, well, this is actually a pretty poor description. I just said they're really bad, don't write them. But if we want an actual definition, um, is a is a loop that never ends. Okay, so um, basically, if we go back to this example, um, this loop would never, if they never entered a valid cost, it could run really forever. All right, and so it would just keep running these lines again and again and again and again, and it would never get to the next line in the program. Okay, and that's what's called an infinite loop. Very bad news. Okay, and so just as an example here, like this would be kind of silly, but let's say I messed it up for some reason, and I added a little thing here that said cost equals 800 or something. This would become an infinite loop. And the reason would be cost is getting overwritten here correctly the way I want, but then no matter what they type here on this next double line, cost will get set to 800, and then this will still be true. 800 is greater than 500, so this will continue to be true, and it'll keep running this loop again and again and again. Okay, and that's called an infinite loop, and it's bad because your program can't continue until the loop ends. Since it never ends, your program just basically hangs and is stuck. It's pretty frustrating. Story about this once, when I was a programmer, one of my, probably like my second week at the company or something, I wrote an infinite loop in one of my programs and it used up so much memory that it wiped out like the entire user programming group. We all kind of programmed on the same computer, which I know seems kind of weird, but we connected to remotely to it and programmed on it. And I shut down that entire computer because I wasted all the memory with a giant loop. And then they came and talked to me and said, you should probably stop doing that. So um, luckily, they're hopefully not too hard to fix. So we'll talk about a couple examples here. Um, so I'm actually going to load this up in Eclipse. I think I have this up here. Okay, so I'm trying to sum, in this example, I'm trying to sum the numbers from 1 to 100. All right, and so I have basically, get rid of this line, I have a sum variable that keeps track of my sum, and then I have a number, right? And I want to go while number is less than or equal to 100. I just keep adding to my sum. And then at the end, I want to print out the sum. All right, so see if you can figure out why this is an infinite loop and how you would possibly fix it. Pause the video before listening to the explanation. Okay, the reason this is an infinite loop is this number doesn't change. So basically it's set to 1 here, we check it against 100 here, and then we add it to sum. All right, so all that happens is it stays as 1 and you keep adding 1 to the sum again and again and again. But number itself never changes, so since it never increases, it's always less than or equal to 100. It's 1 is going to always be less than or equal to 100. So a good trick to make sure you avoid infinite loops is whatever I'm checking with, so a number in this case, that variable has to change in the loop, right? It has to. If it doesn't change, then it's probably like if it enters the loop, it's just going to loop forever and ever and ever. Okay, so basically, if I want to do 1 to 100, what I really want to do is increase number by 1 each time, so that it adds 1 to some, then 2, then 3, then 4, up to 100. Okay, so doing this will ensure that number increases each time through the loop, and then it'll actually display the sum. So let's see if we can rock and roll and get this to work now. Okay, and boom, there it is. If you want to see what it looks like if I didn't have this line, it's probably good to see it. It would just run and it would just hang. So it would print out program starting, and then it's just hanging here, and it never gets to this sum is. And in Eclipse, you can tell it's still running because of this little red square. That means it's running. And so if you get an infinite loop, you can kill it by just hitting this little button and boom, it'll go away. Okay, and that'll make your program stop if you hit an infinite loop. Because otherwise there's really no way to stop it. One other quick, so I'll put it back to the right way. And one other quick thing I want to mention too is sometimes this is possible where like uh, it never enters the loop. I think this was in the reading from yesterday, but I thought I'd highlight it one more time is in this case, if I set number starting at 1,000, it would say while 1,000 is less than 100. And since that isn't true right away, it just skips over this code and would never run the while loop, right? In this case, sum would be 0. Okay, so that's a different kind of error, kind of the opposite of an infinite loop. It's a loop that never runs, which sometimes might be what you want, but in this case, obviously this would not be good. So I'll set it back to the right number. So that's a loop that runs 0 times. Okay, one more infinite example for you. See if you can figure out why this is infinite and then how you would fix it. I guess there's no particular goal on this, but see if you can figure out what would allow you to fix it. Okay, so the problem is it'll enter the loop 20 is greater than 4, but then it adds to score, so it becomes even farther greater than 4. So basically, score just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and this loop won't break because we just keep adding 1 to score, so it's getting bigger and bigger with time. And if you just want to see that, I could do a system out print of score, and when I run this, you'll see it just starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And actually, amazingly, there is like a max int number that eventually will hit that max int. And it's kind of strange because it'll actually roll over into negatives and then it would actually make the loop stop. So this one's not actually an infinite loop because you run out of energies eventually, but I'm not going to let it run that long. I think it's something like 2 million something. So I might actually be getting pretty close now. I don't know. If you want to see it crash over, write your own program and try it out, but I'm gonna kill it just to save time. Actually, 2 more seconds. Okay. Nope. I think it might be a little bit longer yet. All right. So at any rate, the way to fix it would be depending on what the goal is. I was just thinking you could go minus minus score, and then score will eventually become no longer become greater than 4, and then it'll print out a final score. Which, if we try to think through, that's a good question. Like, what will score be here? So if I get rid of this one, I'm doing minus minus score while score is greater than 4. I think it should print out 4 would be my guess, is it would keep going. And then once we hit 4, this would no longer be true. And then it would exit out and print out that final score. Okay, so there you go. All right, so that's called infinite loops. And generally, just make sure whatever you're checking against is changing here. Because if it's not or not done correctly, you can get a code that runs forever and ever, and your program will just hang. So if you ever, program's not running or doesn't seem to be working right, just nothing's happening. It could be because you have a loop that is never exiting. All right, I believe that's it. Thank you for watching.